Nero played the fiddle while Rome burned. Almost everyone believes this. But there's one big problem with this story. The fiddle hadn't even been invented yet. So, if one of history's most famous stories is a lie, what else might be wrong? 54 AD, a 16-year-old boy sat on the throne of Rome. His name, Nero. He didn't come to power through his own strength. His mother, Agrippina, put him there. She poisoned her own husband, then married the emperor, and made sure her son inherited the throne. And so, a 16-year-old boy became emperor of Rome. At first, people loved him. He gave fair judgments. He loved art. He wrote poetry. He performed on stage himself, something no emperor had ever done. The people cheered. The Senate was horrified, but no one knew that in a few years he would become one of the most hated rulers in history. July 19th, 64 AD midnight, near the Circus Maximus, one shop caught fire, then two, then an entire street. The wind carried the flames across the entire city. People were running, some trying to save their families, some losing everything they had. The fire burned for 6 days. 10 of Rome's 14 districts were destroyed or damaged. This was the most catastrophic fire in Roman history, and the people demanded an answer. Who did this? And right here, history's most famous legend was born. Nero stood on a palace tower and played the fiddle, singing while Rome burned. This story has been told for 2,000 years, but this most famous fact in history was actually historically impossible. The fiddle was not invented until the 11th century AD, 1,000 years after Nero. And the historian Tacitus, our most reliable source, himself wrote, "Nero was not in the city. He was at his villa by the sea. When he heard the news, he immediately rushed back." So, the fiddle myth is completely false. But the question remains, who burned Rome? The answer, nobody knows, but there are 3 theories. First, accidental fire. Rome had dry summers, wooden buildings, narrow streets. Fires like this had happened before. Second, Nero himself started it. After the fire, he built a massive palace on the cleared land. Perhaps that land was what he wanted. Third, political enemies. Nero had many enemies in the Senate. Perhaps someone wanted to destroy him by destroying Rome. And the interesting thing, none of the 3 has enough proof. 2,000 years later, the truth is still unknown. But Nero had his own answer. He chose the most vulnerable people, Christians. At that time, there were a small, little understood group in Rome. Nero declared them guilty, arrested them, tortured them, and executed them in the most horrifying ways. According to legend, some were burned in his own gardens as human torches. This was the first great persecution of Christians in Rome. Nero needed someone to blame, and he chose the most defenseless people. That single decision condemned him forever in history. After the fire, Nero began his greatest project, Domus Aurea, the Golden House, more than 180 rooms, walls covered in gold and ivory. Rose petals rained down on guests from the ceilings. There was even a rotating dining room, they say. And at the entrance, a 30-meter statue of Nero himself. The people saw this and became even more convinced. He burned Rome. He wanted this palace. But archaeologists today say the palace was not built only on burned land. Other areas were used too. So this too is not proof, only suspicion. 68 AD, the Senate turned against Nero. They declared him an enemy of the people. The army abandoned him. Nero fled. He hid in a small hut outside Rome and understood this was the end. He asked a servant for help. The servant held his hand, and Nero spoke his final words. Qualis artifex pereo. What an artist the world is losing in me. At 30 years old, he was gone, and with him, the dynasty that began with Julius Caesar ended forever. And now, the most important question. Almost everything we know about Nero was written by his enemies, and written 50 to 150 years after the events. Imagine if the history books of today were written only by people who hated you. How would you appear? The senators who condemned him, the emperors who came after him, they all had reason to make Nero look as bad as possible, to show how much better they were. Perhaps Nero really was a tyrant. Perhaps he was innocent. We will never know for certain. But one thing is clear. If the fiddle story is a lie, how many other historical truths are actually myths? Leave your answer in the comments. And if this story made you think, subscribe, because next time we uncover another secret of Rome.